Thank you for joining us today for our LD5 Dems Bottoms Up podcast. My name is Marilyn Rendon, and I'm the chair of the LD5 Democrats. Today, we're joined by Kurt Kroemer, who is running for the U.S. House of Representatives, District 1. For this podcast, we will ask the same 10 questions to every candidate. They include 5 campaign and election type questions, as well as 5 get-to-know-you questions. The goal is to give you a high-level snapshot of the candidate and their goals. The posting of this podcast will include ways you can reach out to the candidate and their campaign for more information. So let's get started. Kurt has served as a successful senior executive in several iconic organizations, including Senior Vice President of the American Red Cross, the Chief Executive Officer of the Arizona and New Mexico region of ARC, and the Chief Operating Officer of the Make-A-Wish Foundation of America and Humanity United. He also served in Congress for over 10 years as a congressional investigator and as a 2-time city councilman. He has spent time overseas working for organizations dedicated to ending genocides and human trafficking, as well as social impact work in developing communities. His entire life has been dedicated to helping others. Now to the bottoms-up questions. In 5 words, please explain why you're running for office.
Our democracy is in peril. Really, nothing else matters at the end of the day if we don't have a democracy, and it is in grave danger, and that is why I am running for Congress.
In your opinion, what is the greatest challenge facing people in your district or respective area in 2024 and in the coming years?
I think the major issue facing a lot of people is, frankly, the economy just isn't working for them. You look around our district, and we've got some areas that are fairly well off, and we've got areas that are not. But people are struggling to pay just everyday bills, whether it's a healthcare bill, their rent, their electric bill. And I think that is really what's going on around the whole country. And that is fundamentally what we need to be working on in Congress to help folks to live the American dream.
Elected, what is the one thing you hope to achieve in your first year of office?
I really want to focus on children. I've got this national security and international affairs background, and I'd like to do some work in that space on different committees. But fundamentally, if I think about what is this country all about, what do we owe our people, it's taking care of our kids. So the one thing I want to do is to pass legislation to increase the child earned income tax credit. We actually expanded that during the pandemic, and we basically got rid of childhood poverty in this country. And that legislation wasn't extended, and I want to bring that back. Kids need at least, right? Every single kid in this country needs to have enough food to eat, a good school, a roof over their head. That is just a moral imperative.
What is your approach to building unity and navigating divisive political situations?
Yeah, we definitely have a divisive political environment right now in this country. And I think sometimes the problem is we all immediately jump to our solution rather than first talking about the outcome. Because I think it's the case that a majority of Americans actually agree on a majority of outcomes. So we can all agree, right, that we want to reduce homelessness. We can agree that we want to reduce poverty. We can agree that we want health care for everybody. The vast majority of people agree on that stuff. And so if we start with that, then we start the conversation with, great, look, we can actually agree on things. And then we can start to work backwards and say, okay, so now let's talk a little bit about how we make that happen. But I think you start the conversation in that affirmational way, and that can get the ball rolling.
What is the one thing you want people to know about your governing style?
Yeah, when I led the Red Cross in Arizona, New Mexico, as a CEO of the Make-A-Wish Foundation and all these other organizations, my management style was very inclusive. And that's how I would want to legislate. That's how I would want to bring people along. I always found, if I brought people into a room and everyone was part of the decision, and then there was buy-in. And that's it. It wasn't me from on the top as the CEO saying this is how we're going to do it. That's not very constructive and doesn't work for the long term. And so I want to have an inclusive process, and that includes bringing in constituents, holding town halls, all of those things that, frankly, David Schweikert never does. And that's how I think you can bring folks along the whole political spectrum if they're part of the solution.
What is your favorite thing about Arizona?
Yeah, there's a lot of things I really like about Arizona, but this is sort of an easy one. I don't know if everybody would say this, maybe not, but I love the weather here. I mean, the heat doesn't bother me. I grew up in Rochester, New York. Like, I do not want to be around cold weather. I'm also a pretty active person. I'm outside a lot. And so I love it here. And I don't mind the heat one bit.
Who has had the greatest influence on your political career?
Yeah, this is an interesting question because I've been, I was a city councilman, but those were nonpartisan positions. And I worked for Congress, and that was a nonpartisan position, right? I worked with different committees and subcommittees, but it was apolitical. When I worked for the Red Cross, Make-A-Wish, Humanity United, we couldn't be political. It literally was part of the credo of those organizations. And so I've watched politics. I'm deeply ensconced in policy, but I'm not a political operative. I'm not part of this political class. I think it's really about, I admire people who have courage. That is the human characteristic I admire above all else. And I see a lot of politicians that don't have courage. And with me, you're going to always know where I stand, and you're always going to know, what I say is what I mean. And so that's my best answer.
Something that most people do not know about you, but should.
Yeah, I think perhaps people know this, but I want folks to know just who I am as a person. I have in fact spent my life oftentimes in places where I am alleviating human suffering, right? Helping families that were impacted by 9/11 or Katrina, or working for an organization that worked in Africa to end mass atrocities. And so my inner soul is tied to this notion that I am here to help others. And that is the driving force for everything that I do. And I hope it will be the driving force for when I get to Congress and try to bring humanity back to that entity.
How do you relax?
This might seem weird, but again, some people know this, not many, but I have been an endurance athlete my whole life. And so I actually hold the world record for running across the country. Today, I'm the current Arizona state champion in cycling for my age group. So how I relax is I go out on a 50-mile bike ride, or in the past, I would go out for a 20-mile run. That doesn't sound very relaxing to most people, but it really is. When I'm out on my bike, I can think about things. And actually, I think a lot about politics a lot of the time. I'm on my bike and start to think about solutions. And so it is a weird relaxation, but going out and doing endurance stuff, that's my thing.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie, for sure, is Avatar. I mean, I am a sucker for a good versus evil kind of theme, and Avatar has that. I also really appreciate sort of the spirituality in that movie and how people are grounded to the environment, and this notion that we're all tied together. And that's another piece that I always think about, that we are really all tied together inextricably. And if I do something good, that has a resonating impact. And so Avatar is just this, I I literally cry every single time I watch parts of that movie because it's just so moving to me about how the characters think about their existence among each other.
Thank you so much for participating with us today. We so appreciate that we have another high-quality candidate in our Democratic stable.
Thank you for having me.